seems like some relationships have finally reached their boiling point. So let's break down all this ridiculous drama in Season 3, Episode 15 of Riverdale and find out just what happened. What's going on, you lovely Riverdale fam? Lisa here, and it is Riverdale time, and I just gotta say, I know it's gonna be a little bit sad, but the show is still kind of hard for me to watch after Luke Perry's death. And this episode, I was doing fine. You know, there wasn't really any Fred Andrews until the very end, and Fred's just one of the best characters that's been on this show. I feel like he definitely was the heart and the moral compass, and even though they've definitely underutilized that character this season, whenever Fred pops up on screen, he just perfectly knows what to say, and I feel like he's very much like Luke was in real life, and I just can't imagine how the show is even going to deal with writing off this character, because I feel like nothing is fitting for this character. But I guess time will tell on that, and enough of my sad rambling, and let's get to the drama of this episode titled American Dreams. First, we have two couples kind of destructing, which honestly I was not surprised by. Reggie finally wisens up and decides to get some self-respect as he realizes Veronica's basically just using him. He now wants to be a partner with her since, let's face it, he's doing all the grunt work. Now Veronica though is like, well, you see, I owe these two big crime bigwigs some money, so it's just not wise to take on another partnership right now.
But to quote my abuelita, no one walks on water in my place. Except me.
Yeah, it kind of looks like more and more of Hiram is coming out in Veronica as time goes on. Now Veronica does think it through though and tries to make things right by giving Reggie some money, but this just makes him feel like she thinks he's just the help and she's trying to buy herself a clear conscience, so he's like not taking it at all. So he takes the night off and goes to try to steal his car back from Gladys, but is unsuccessful and Gladys drags him back to Veronica. So to make up for Reggie's so-called recklessness, Veronica tells Gladys she'll cover the cost of FP's big 50th birthday bash, and again yells at Reggie.
Reggie, this is how wars start.
Damn it, Veronica, I gave you everything. I wanted to get my damn car back at least.
The next time Reggie drops by, he finally lets Veronica know that he's basically had enough. And he finally asks Veronica if they would even be together if it wasn't for the speakeasy, to which she says, probably not. And well, he is done giving and giving with nothing in return. So Veronica, she just gives him the car keys because she bought his car back to kind of like make this a truce, to leave them not owing each other anything. So you know what? I'm actually kind of proud of Reggie here. He at first, you know, he was never really a smart guy as far as the character goes, and he was just kind of another one of those puppy dogs that was under Veronica's spell like Archie was, but here he is wisening up, like actually maturing and realizing his worth, and I actually really like that. But now it's kind of like, well, what is Reggie going to do now? Is he even going to be around? Because he really only fit in with Archie and with Veronica, so I don't know if he's really even going to have a big part, even though he's like a series regular now, you know, but we know that the show doesn't really like to use the series regulars like they should unless they're the core four, but that's another story and complaint for another time. But I do feel like this was kind of setting up to give him some time off, Charles Melton, the actor, to go film Bad Boys for Life, which I think he's doing right now, so I'm guessing that's why this plot happens. But either way, R.I.P. Veggie. The other couple that hits a major rough patch in this episode are Tony and Cheryl, and it's kind of been a frustrating ride with this couple. I know right out the gate when they got together, Shoney fans were like really excited because it seemed like this was going to be a good thing for Cheryl, but over time, I think this couple has just not been done justice, and I feel like Shoney fans might be pissed about what seems like a breakup in this episode. But I'm more pissed, not so much about the breakup, but that they used this couple in order to kind of be the catalyst to force the musical episode upon us, which is the next episode. But I guess we had to get to that musical somehow, right? Anyway, so what happens in this episode is Cheryl's basically pissed that Tony now has other friends and interests other than Cheryl, because let's face it, if you're going to be in a relationship with Cheryl, it's gotta be all about her all the time. Yeah, Cheryl's not too excited that Tony's spending so much more time with the pretty poisons, but if Cheryl didn't want that to happen, maybe she shouldn't have gone and gotten her girlfriend a new gang. So when Tony says she made plans with the pretty poisons for spring break and can't go with Cheryl on a ski trip, that's kind of like strike one, and Cheryl starts pouting. And then her jealousy grows even more when she shows up to the speakeasy to see Tony cozying up to Veronica singing Call Your Girlfriend. Strike two. And now add that to the fact that Nana Rose tells Cheryl Tony's been paying rent. Yeah, strike three. So now desperate times call for desperate measures. There's no better way to get your girlfriend's attention than by robbing the place that she works security at, right? Like, first of all, isn't Pop's a 24-hour diner? Wouldn't someone be at the counter watching and being like, why is Cheryl rolling up in here looking all suspicious like a freaking burglar? Either way, when Cheryl tries to, break into the safe, Tony is right down there waiting for her because she knew Cheryl was casing the joint when she dropped by earlier. And this leads to some fighting, which of course on Riverdale is just code for foreplay. And I mean, there's nothing like one last good steamy hurrah before it all falls apart. Because right after the lovemaking, Cheryl and Tony air out their grievances about Cheryl basically just wanting to kind of lock Tony up in her room and let her talk to nobody else, while Tony says, they moved too fast too soon, and, Cheryl's room doesn't feel like a home, and, well, yeah, now seems like Tony's packing up to move out. So now Cheryl is filled with rage, and the only way she knows how to channel that is into a musical. And no, it's not going to be Carrie to the Rage. She forces Kevin to change the musical, which apparently is sponsored by the farm now, from Godspell to Heathers, thus setting up for next week's musical episode. Look, like I said, I know there's a lot of fans of Shoney out there, but come on, y'all. I feel like you knew from just a few weeks into this relationship that Cheryl always treated Tony like crap. I mean, Cheryl did have her nice moments, like getting Tony that college interview, but then it kind of felt like every nice thing Cheryl did was just to make up for something bad she did. In other words, just the cycle of a toxic kind of relationship. And I mean, if anybody had talked to me like this, I'd probably be dumping them too.
I was in a mood to gamble.
So no ulterior motives then?
Only to win, of course. I'll be a doll and fetch me a Bellini, why don't you?
Yeah, no one in a relationship should be made to feel like the hired help. Alright, Reggie? But this does suck because I feel like this couple could have been something good, something big, especially as representation for the LGBTQ community. And they were that for a while, but then it's like, why can't we just portray a healthy relationship between Cheryl and Tony and then Kevin just getting jilted and screwed over all over the place? It's kind of like, are there any real healthy relationships on this show? Right now it only seems like Betty and Jughead, so at least we got one, right? But I also just feel like the show keeps doing Cheryl dirty. I know at the beginning she was kind of the sassy, I hate to use the B word, but kind of like that, who was also used for comic relief and all of that. And then they started to give her some depth, especially with this relationship, making it seem like she was growing as a character and changing. But then as soon as she would show a different side of her, I feel like the writers would forget about that and negate it in the next episode, so all progress was lost. And right now, I just think they're kind of better off, Cheryl and Tony, alone. But I'll always be here for Cheryl's sassy one-liners. So what's next? Yes, it's another episode where, Archie takes his shirt off because, well, let's face it, the kid can't think or solve any of his problems with a shirt on. So the group, Betty, Jughead, and Archie, which it was kind of nice to see the three of them really back together, doing their little investigative thing again, but they realize that there's multiple quest cards that say kill the Red Paladin out there. So Archie confronts Hiram, knowing that he's probably the one who sent these cards out initially and giving them to the Warden and Tallboy. Now remember, these two were supposed to have a truce, so Archie's kind of like, you gotta help me, dude, because even though we have a truce, you sent these cards out, there's still people after me, they're gonna come out of the woodwork. So Hiram gives Archie a list of hotspot locations where Fizzle Rocks were sold and G&G was played, where the cards might have been distributed. So Betty, Jughead, and Archie go seeking out some of these G&G games and decide to basically force all these cold card holders to come out of the woodwork. So Jughead makes an amendment to make it seem like it's coming from the Gargoyle King to change the quest, and he has the serpents spread around the message, which is basically that any of the card holders have a 12-hour window to challenge Archie and complete their quest, and if no one does, then Archie will be free of his sacrifice mark. So the key to get in is to having one of these cards. So now they need a place to hold this event. So Archie once again goes to see Hiram, and what do you know, Hiram's just acquired a bunch of buildings, and by chance, and by not chance I mean it's because it's just so obvious it has to happen, one of those buildings is an abandoned boxing gym. So Hiram gives Archie the keys so he can hold this big shindig there. So yeah, now it's the day of the challenge. They have basically from dusk till dawn to take down Archie in a 3-minute fight. And well, 11 cosplaying fighters show up for the challenge with their Kill the Red Paladin cards in hand. And well, I gotta say, Archie takes quite a beating, but is able to prevail despite the foul play and biting. Like, dang. Now here's the thing though, you know, last episode, you know, Tom Keller was like, Archie, you're not ready for one fight. Flash forward like a couple days and now he's like, I can take on 12 people in 3-minute fights. Oh, geez, Archie. You know what? At least they finally remembered some continuity and put the bear claw marks on his chest and arm. Anyway, Archie beats these 11 guys, and now there's one card still left, and that's when the final fight arrives. It's Captain Golightly from the prison, who is the warden's basically lapdog, right-hand man, whatever you want to call him. Captain steps in for the challenge, and just when it looks like Archie's about to get defeated, Archie throws a well-timed uppercut to knock the dude out and win. So now he is supposedly no longer marked for sacrifice. So Archie then goes to return the keys to this gym to Hiram, but Hiram tells Archie to keep the gym with no strings attached. So Archie accepts and takes the keys. And well, Hiram, he's kind of an interesting one, right? It's kind of like, am I getting duped again because you are such a slimy weasel? But I feel like there's something in his eyes that actually makes me feel like this time he's being genuine to Archie. But as time will tell, if Archie's still marked for sacrifice, we'll have to see if Hiram's actually being genuine with Archie, because let's face it, this building is within a bunch of other buildings that Hiram bought, and Hiram does not do non-shady business, so I feel like Archie's just gonna get roped into something. But fingers crossed that maybe he won't, and this whole Hiram versus Archie thing is completely finished. Lastly, let's talk about our dysfunctional Jones family, along with the Coopers. Now at first, things seem all great, like the Joneses are finally getting their American dream, the family's back together, and surprise, Gladys bought the family a house on the north side. But that house comes with a little fire damage and a lot more baggage because, yeah, Gladys is the anonymous buyer of Alice Cooper's house. I really think Gladys needs to learn to do some more research when she's buying stuff online next time. This is literally a murder house, and it's the Cooper's house. Come on now. But yeah, the Joneses and Coopers end up running into each other at the house, and Jughead tells Betty he doesn't want to move into the house because that's just kind of weird. But then Jughead's kind of like, well, if we did move in, then you could just stay in your old room and you can get to know the family better. But Betty's kind of like, yeah, I think I'm just gonna stay at Veronica's right now, which honestly might not be a bad idea. Anyway, seeing FP and Gladys together finally brings back around our FP and Alice storyline, as Alice goes to confront FP in his sheriff's office, basically trying to find out if FP still loves Gladys, which is like, she's the mother of my children. And then she's kind of like, well, do you love me? And he's kind of like, well, it doesn't matter now because it's over. Ouch. I mean, if we needed the one last straw to make Alice go running off to the farm, I feel like this was it. And it's also kind of weird though that this was brought back up, because wouldn't you think Alice would go confront FP about Gladys as soon as Gladys moved back into town? I think everybody knew she was back, and if Alice really was in love with FP, like, just go talk to him, man. I feel like they just all of a sudden just pulled this back out just to make Alice more in with the farm, to not want to come back out of it, right? Moving on though, with Gladys buying the Cooper house, Jughead has started to become even more suspicious of his mom's motives. So he basically upfront asks her where this money came from and what she's really doing in town. And of course, Gladys, being the slimy serpent she is, has pretty much an answer prepared for all the questions. But it's obvious Jughead is looking at her with a suspicious eye and is gonna keep watch on her. Then when the serpents get paired with their deputies, Jughead ends up riding with FP, and they get this call about an incident at Pop's where Veronica reveals that some Fizzle Rocks junkie threw hot coffee on someone, and Jughead's kind of like, wait, Fizzle Rocks? I thought those were gone.
Yeah, I've heard rumblings, rumors that someone's looking to reopen the candy store. I wonder who.
Well, Jughead, this time around it is not Hiram who is in charge of these fizzle rocks, and we all know that Veronica knows the truth, and she's finally realized she cannot sit on it anymore. So during her little slumber party with Betty, Veronica tells Betty that Gladys is the one who's taken over the drug trade, and that's why she's in town. So Betty kind of tells Veronica she's got no choice but to tell Jughead, which she does, but Betty does do her friend a solid by keeping her source anonymous. Now Jughead is planning on looking into this, but he wants to do this on his own, without Betty. So when he sends out the serpents to tell the G&G players about the Archie challenge, he also tells them to be on the lookout for any information about the return of Fizzle Rocks and to report their findings to only him. Well, Sweet Pea and Fangs return to Jughead with some bad news, and we see Jughead go and confront Gladys, who actually fesses up to everything.
Dad would not be okay knowing how you paid for that place.
Which is exactly why you're not going to say a word to him. It would break him. Again. Maybe for the last time.
Because earlier in this episode, when Jughead was riding around in the cop car with his dad, FP was talking about how happy he is now, how the family's back together, how his life has changed, and just how things are good. And so Jughead's really struggling with, breaking his dad's spirit and what seems like his dad being in the best place of his life that he's had so far. So when it's time for Jughead to give his speech at FP's party, it kind of looks though like Jughead might make a big move and expose his mom. But then he refrains because he has something better in mind.
Save Jellybean, protect my dad, and run my mom out of town. Do you want to help?
Oh, Jughead, it's kind of like if you only knew your sister is not as sweet, as innocent as you think she is, that she's actually helping your mom. Good luck on saving her, Jughead. But actually, if anybody could do it, I think it would be Jughead, because Jellybean is still young. She's still impressionable. I think you can still win her over to the good side. But that pretty much wraps up the main events of this week's episode of Riverdale. So, essentially, Reggie's done with Veronica, Tony and Cheryl are on a break, it seems like. Archie is supposedly free from being hunted by strung-out G&G players, and Jughead is finally ready to take down his mom. And I'm actually kind of interested in this Jughead versus Gladys storyline. I mean, in ways, it's kind of a repeat of Hiram versus Veronica, but I kind of have faith that Jughead will actually get the job done and won't drag it out like 2 or 3 seasons like this Lodge family drama has been strung out. But yeah, like I mentioned, next week is the musical episode where the show takes on Heathers, so let's go ahead and watch that promo.
Heathers deals with teen alienation and desperation.
What's your damage, Child of the Corn?
Let's start figuring out what we are.
Your mother and I are separating.
Riverdale's filled with a lot of desperate folks.
Heathers is being used to indoctrinate students into a cult.
What are we gonna do?
Oh boy, we get the return of Archie's awkward dancing, and it's kind of like, okay, this musical is being used to recruit members for the farm. Is that Kevin inducting Fangs? No, we protect Fangs here, right? If we can't protect Kevin, we're gonna protect Fangs. But when it comes to this musical, the cast list was released a while ago, and it showed what parts everybody would be playing, and it said Jughead would be doing security. But from these first look photos, I think from E, it kind of looks like Jughead standing in a line rehearsing and singing with everybody else. So does that mean fans will finally get to hear Cole Sprouse sing, bringing back those Disney Channel Circle of Stars feels that I know people have kind of been wanting, even though Cole Sprouse refuses to sing ever again? I kind of feel like we won't really know until it happens, but it kind of looks like he's in the production, and if he is, I bet he's just in the chorus and he's gonna mumble and you won't ever hear him. But never say never, right? But that's all I got for you for this week, and as an episode as a whole, I actually didn't hate it like I have some of the other episodes this season, which I think is maybe a good sign, but we shall see. It's now your turn to hit me up in the comments and let me know all your thoughts and theories for what's going on with this show. Do you think Archie has really gotten out of being a sacrifice and won't be hunted anymore? Do you actually think him and Hiram are really in a truce that war is over? And how do you think Jughead is going to take down his mother? Let me know after I clear my throat. And then right after that, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because I always got new recaps, interviews, all kinds of fun stuff. If you love Cole Sprouse's brand new movie 5 Feet Apart, comes out this Friday, and I got some interviews from that right over here. As always, my name's Lisa. Thanks for hanging out with me, Riverdale family. I just hit my mic. I apologize, and I'll see you next time.